Nobody really tells you what happens after you start a GLP-1 medication. Not day by day, not what week 1 actually looks like, and not when the side effects usually show up, not when people start panicking that it stopped working, and definitely not what's normal versus what's a real red flag. Roughly 1 in 8 American adults has tried a GLP-1 medication now, but most people still go into their first injection with almost no idea what the next 30 days inside their body is actually going to feel like. At TrimRx, I've helped thousands of patients across all 50 states start GLP-1 treatment. So I've watched these first 30 days play out over and over again in real people. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through exactly what happens inside your body during your first month on a GLP-1, day by day, week by week. What's physically happening and what you're likely to feel, what's normal, and what means you should actually contact your provider. By the end, you'll have a realistic map of what the first 30 days usually looks like. Day 1, the shot you've been avoiding. Let's start with the moment that most people build up in their head for weeks. That first injection. And honestly, most patients are shocked by how small the needle actually is. The injection usually goes into the abdomen or thigh. It takes a few seconds. And for most people, the anticipation is far worse than the injection itself. But once that medication is in your body, things start happening surprisingly fast. Within hours, the medication begins interacting with GLP-1 receptors involved in hunger regulation, stomach emptying, and insulin signaling. In simple terms, your body starts receiving stronger fullness signals. Your stomach starts slowing down how quickly it empties food, and your brain begins changing the way it responds to hunger cues. Now here's the important part. The first 24 to 72 hours, most people do not feel some dramatic overnight transformation. It's usually pretty subtle. Maybe you feel full a little faster during meals. Maybe there's some mild nausea. Maybe food sounds slightly less exciting than usual. Some patients describe it as the very first moment that the background chatter around food starts getting quieter. Not gone, just softer. And during those first few days, the mild side effects can start showing up. Things like mild queasiness, fatigue, maybe a headache, constipation. Sometimes those are connected not only to the medication itself, but also to changes in how you're eating and hydrating. Now, severe vomiting, severe abdominal pain, signs of dehydration, those are not things you should ignore. Those warrant a conversation with your provider. But for most patients, the first few days are not dramatic. It's subtle, which leads to the next question that everyone asks after the first shot. Is this thing even doing anything yet? And that's where week 1 begins. Week 1, why most people almost quit. Week 1 is where most patients hit the hardest adjustment period. This is usually where your side effects peak, and it's also where hunger and food noise often start dropping much faster than some people expected. This is the week where someone sits down to their normal dinner and suddenly feels full halfway through, or walks past the pantry at night and realizes they didn't automatically reach for a snack. For some patients, that experience feels almost unsettling because the constant mental loop around food suddenly starts getting quieter. At the same time, the GI system is trying to adapt to slower stomach emptying. Food is sitting in your stomach longer. Digestion slows down. And that's why this is often the peak week for nausea, constipation, bloating, fatigue, or those yucky sulfur burps. This is the critical reframe that most people need to hear. For most patients, week 1 side effects, that's the body adapting, not your body rejecting the medication. And that distinction matters because many people quit exactly during this window, right before things start improving. Patients who push through this adjustment period often notice those symptoms easing significantly over the next couple of weeks. Now again, there are real red flags: severe ongoing vomiting, signs of dehydration, severe abdominal pain. Those are things your provider needs to know about immediately. But mild nausea during week 1, that's extremely common. And while all of this is happening physically, something else is happening behaviorally. You're probably eating less without trying, maybe for the first time in years. And by week 2, that usually starts becoming much more noticeable. Week 2, when your body stops resisting. For many patients, week 2 is where things start clicking. The side effects often begin easing as the body adapts to the medication. Energy starts improving again. The GI system starts recalibrating, and the quiet around food becomes impossible not to notice. This is the stage that patients talk about more than anything else. The food noise, the constant thinking about the next meal, the cravings, the snacking on autopilot. For many people, that mental volume starts turning way down. Some patients describe it as the first time that their brain has felt calm around food in years. And underneath all of this, major metabolic shifts are happening because caloric intake has naturally decreased. Fullness signals are stronger. Stomach emptying is slower, and insulin sensitivity is improving in the background. This is often the point where the scale finally starts reflecting those internal changes. Not dramatically, not overnight, but the curve starts bending. Now, one important thing that shows up during week 2 is the opposite problem people expected. Some patients become so unhungry that they accidentally undereat. They skip protein, they forget their hydration, and that can backfire fast. So even when your appetite drops, your body still needs nutrition. Protein still matters, hydration still matters, because this medication is a tool. It's not permission to stop fueling your body. And just when patients start feeling confident that everything is working perfectly, week 3 shows up. And this is where a lot of people panic. Week 3, the plateau that makes people panic. Week 3 is where many patients experience their first plateau. The scale may stop moving for several days, sometimes longer, and this completely freaks people out, especially if you've been weighing yourself every morning and watching that number drop consistently. And then suddenly, nothing changes. 4 days in a row, same number. People immediately assume the medication stopped working, but physiologically, this is actually very normal. Early changes often include shifts in water weight and glycogen storage. Then your body starts adapting. Metabolic compensation starts kicking in. And sometimes that starting dose is approaching the point where your provider may eventually consider titrating upward. That doesn't mean the medication has failed. In fact, the plateau is often proof that the body is responding and adjusting to the dose properly, which is the exact information that your providers need during this first month. And while the scale may temporarily flatten out, other things are still improving underneath the surface. Many patients report better blood sugar stability, less inflammation, improved sleep, lower cravings for sugar or alcohol, better energy consistency, and sometimes body composition continues changing even when the scale barely moves. So week 3 is not the moment to panic. It's the moment to understand that this process is not linear, which brings us to day 30. The question everybody actually came here to answer: what does a successful first month really look like? Day 30, the verdict. By day 30, most patients who are responding well settle into a pretty recognizable pattern. The side effects are usually far more manageable. Food noise is dramatically quieter. Fullness signals feel more natural. Energy is stabilizing. And many patients notice their clothes fitting differently before they fully notice it in the mirror. And importantly, success at day 30 usually does not look extreme. It looks steady, sustainable, controlled. A lot of the biggest wins by this point are not even scale related. Patients often report sleeping better, less acid reflux, less joint discomfort, reduced cravings for sugar or alcohol, and one of the biggest changes is psychological. The amount of mental space that opens up when food is no longer dominating every thought. Now, day 30 is also when providers typically evaluate how that starting dose is working. For some patients, the current dose is doing exactly what it should. For others, it may be time to increase gradually. But the goal is not more medication every time. The goal is the lowest effective dose that produces sustainable results with manageable side effects. And there are situations where day 30 should absolutely trigger a real provider conversation. If there's no noticeable change in hunger, fullness, or eating behavior at all, if severe GI symptoms are still ongoing, if there's severe abdominal pain, or symptoms that suggest something more serious like gallbladder complications, is happening. Those are not things to silently push through. Those are conversations to have with your provider, because the first 30 days are really the body learning the medication. Month 2 becomes something completely different. That's when the patient starts learning too, how to eat for satiety, how to prioritize protein, how to protect muscle mass, and how to use this window of opportunity that the medication creates to build habits that last beyond the prescription itself. So now you know what the first 30 days look like on a GLP-1, week by week, inside the body. But the bigger question a lot of people still haven't answered is whether they're actually a good candidate for this in the first place. So click this next video here. Take GLP-1 if you answer yes to these 5 questions. Because in that video, I walk through the medical criteria, the lifestyle factors, and the honest conversations every patient should have before starting a GLP-1. Watch that next, and you'll know exactly where you stand. I'll see you there.